Yo, what's up, guys? I'm back for another week of breakdown and predictions. This week we got UFC Vegas 88, UFC Fight Night, Tuivasa versus Tybura, two heavyweights in the main event. Kind of a lower level card after the card we had last week, especially. And we still have some bets, though. I have a few plays. I got some big props once again, like I did last week, and hopefully going to continue that momentum over there on patreon.com/prediction on the channel with the picks. Last week we went 13-1 on the predictions. The only one we got wrong was Sean O'Malley. So props to him. There was a few people that were really confident in him, and I was thinking that Cheeto could maybe do something. It was totally wrong on that prediction, but other than that, we were perfect on the night, and we're gonna try to have another big night betting and a good night predicting once again. So make sure to hit that like button. Go to patreon.com/MPredictionGuru if you're interested in bets this week, in different content. There's going to be a couple Cage Warriors cards this week, and MA's ramping up with more shows coming up, so it's always good to be over there on Patreon. But besides that, man, let's get into this fight card. Let's talk about these fights. The first fight on this card right here is Charly Gregorio. He's taking on Chad and Heler. Both these guys are former Contender Series guys, and they're going to be fighting at 135. And Heler, to me, kind of in a win-or-lose position here, or win-or-lose-your-job kind of situation is what I'm trying to say. He's 37 years old, 1-2 so far in the UFC. Usually they give out 4-fight contracts, so I would imagine this is likely the last fight on Heler's contract. And for his opponent, he actually is coming in for his debut, won as a nice underdog in the Contender Series, and actually did it in a really good fashion. You know, he caught Cam Smotherman, knocked him out in about a minute, and he's 8-3, so he's kind of has a little bit of a salty record, but he's won 4 in a row, 31 years old, so he's the younger guy, more in his prime, and he needs to get going quickly if he wants to make an impact in the UFC. Both these guys obviously are not spring chickens, but Charly is the one with the momentum here. As far as how they both fight, you look at Heler, power puncher. The majority of his wins are knockouts and pretty good movement. You'll try to move around, use the counter left hook or the right hand, and decent head movement. He can land some slip and rip shots, but holds his hands low and he gets clipped himself. He's getting older, so those reactions are not going to be as good. Leg kicks have also been an issue for Heler, and I expect Gregorio to throw a lot of leg kicks, probably be the fighter throwing a little bit more volume. And I don't think Chad and Heler will have to deal with much wrestling here, which is good news for him. He has improved his wrestling and grappling, and in the past it was a really bad problem for him. He got submitted 6 times, but his takedown defense is a little better, and I don't think Gregorio necessarily poses a big submission threat, even though he trained with good submission grapplers. We haven't really seen that from him, and he usually likes to strike, so could be the type of fight that Heler likes, and it could be both these guys going to war. Cardio for Heler, I would say, is good, even with his age, and he's willing to take damage and go to war, so he's still there, and he's still someone that you have to be careful and ready for when you fight him. For Gregorio, he's a powerful striker. He throws heavy leg kicks, big left hooks, good right straights, and when you back him up, he'll either shoot the double or go uppercut left hook. And pressuring Gregorio and being high volume is how Christian Rodriguez defeated him. Gregorio can be a little bit flat-footed in fights. Fast fighters can stick and move on him. But in this fight, Heler doesn't really have that style, so I think Gregorio is going to do better on the feet more than likely. But there aren't a lot of setups for Gregorio or fast strikes. He throws everything with power, so sometimes guys can get in, get out on him, can counter on him. He needs to stay sharp with his defense here, and not get clipped by Heler, who is a pretty hard puncher. So both these guys have the ability to knock each other out, but I would say maybe Gregorio is the one with the better wrestling threat. I mean, it looks like he's been training a lot of wrestling in camp, so maybe that's something that he's going to go to, but both these guys are similar in terms of their low volume. They rely on power. I think Heler is a little faster, a little more mobile, but not as good defensively. And I feel like Heler is going to take leg kicks in this fight. I think he's going to eat some counters. And I see him just being the low volume guy in a low volume fight that is getting pushed back and not controlling the center of the cage. Both fighters do have knockout upside, so Heler could win. But I I don't know. I think Gregorio could wrestle as well, potentially, and use that to differentiate if it's a really close fight. It's a pass for me personally. I mean, not going to take Gregorio at the number he's at. I think it's a little bit of a steep price for a UFC debutant that's not that experienced. But I'm going to say Gregorio wins via decision. And up next, we get a short notice fight between Thiago Moises and Mitch Ramirez. Thiago Moises, kind of a dangerous fight here. He's having to defend his position versus a UFC debutant. He's originally going to fight Brad Riddell, who was coming back off of a layoff, but is a well-known fighter. And Thiago Moises obviously has been a UFC main eventer and things like that. So it's a tricky fight. You know, if he loses, he's way down in the rankings, but he's a pretty big favorite for a reason. Going to have to bounce back from his last loss to Benoit Saint Denis, but been fighting really good competition. Obviously, like I just said, just fought Benoit Saint Denis. Now he's fighting Mitch Ramirez. So definitely kind of a step down. But Mitch Ramirez is an 8-1 prospect. His one loss came to Carlos Prates on the Contender Series last year. But mostly he's fought lower level competition overall in his career, Ramirez, and he's getting a huge opportunity here. I mean, fighting someone that's been ranked in the top 15, and I feel like Ramirez is better at 155. He's previously fought at 170, but I think that he's more suited for this weight class if he can make it. But stylistically, Ramirez, big, strong, powerful guy, pressure fighter, wants to get inside, try to brawl, time the left hook, and then when he backs up, he will throw some overhands, hooks, and try to catch you as you're coming in. At range, he'll throw some leg kicks, but flat-footed, slow, doesn't really move his head very well, and kind of would just shell up and look to return, and leaves his body open, doesn't check leg kicks, and headshots do slip in. His loss to Carlos Prates, he got beat up pretty bad. Leg kicks really battered him in that fight. He has power, and he also has no quit in him, so it makes him dangerous. But usually when he wins, it's finishing guys super quick, and when fights progress and you have to show your skills and things like that, he didn't do good against Prates, we'll say that. But Ramirez, he'll wrestle in his fights. He hit a big double against the fence in his fight with Carlos Prates, and in other fights he uses wrestling. I don't know if he's going to want to really try to grapple with Moises, who's really dangerous, but could see him trying to just use his size and hold Moises up against the cage, and that could be maybe his path to victory there. But one thing about Ramirez that is good is he does have good cardio normally, and he tends to come forward and pressure guys. But coming in on short notice, you have to kind of monitor if his cardio is going to be good or not. We're not too sure. But Moises is way more skilled, fighting out of ATT, so he's going to have the calf kicks, and that's going to be something that he's probably going to have a lot of success with this in this fight. He's going to be a lot faster, in my opinion, have the better footwork. He has quick hands, good counters. Kicks are on point. I think he's pretty durable, but he has been knocked out in 2 of his last 3 fights after never being finished with strikes at all in 21 fights before that. So have to kind of question it a little bit. And he doesn't have a lot of power, and sometimes guys that will just eat his shots and can cut the cage off and force a war can overwhelm him, and we've seen that happen a little bit with the Benoit Saint Denis fight. But Moises, great grappler. His wrestling isn't bad either. He has good offensive wrestling, but sometimes he can get kind of just held against the cage or grind it out, and against really good wrestlers, he can get taken down a little bit. But with Ramirez, I just don't see Ramirez having a lot of success in the grappling. I think if Moises can force more grappling exchanges, he's going to have a good chance of getting the submission. Huge step down for Moises, and I think he's going to use his leg kicks and his speed to kind of immobilize and hurt Ramirez, get him a little bit tired, and then I think he's either going to time the double and get the back, or Ramirez is going to shoot a bad takedown and expose the back, and Thiago Moises is going to end up getting that submission. So I'm going to say Moises wins this fight via second round submission here. And up next here we have another established UFC veteran here in Josh Culiba. He's taking on a Dana White Contender Series fighter in Danny Silva. And Culiba, he's been impressive to me, but up and down during his UFC tenure. 3-2-1 in 6 fights. And the level of competition has been high. He had the draw with Jourdain that probably should have been a win. His last fight with Laurent Murphy, that was probably a chance to get into the top 15 or at least get a top 15 opponent next. And it was a close fight, but he came up short via decision. And now he's fighting a prospect, and we're going to see if he can kind of hold back Danny Silva, keep his position here, and stay relevant in the division, or if he's going to kind of drop down pretty significantly. But Silva, 27 years old, 8-1 fighting out of California, had that really fun back and forth fight on the Contender Series where both guys took a lot of damage, but Silva was definitely the more dominant guy. And you look at Danny Silva, I get why he's getting this opportunity early to fight someone that the UFC probably respects, because if he wins, I think they're going to put Danny Silva in some higher position fights because he's a really fun fighter to watch. He's an action fighter. He brings the war, fights at a super high pace. He walks opponents down in slip and rip combinations, hands low, fast hands, throws to the body and the head. And he's good at kind of rolling, slipping with shots, and then coming back with his own punches. He'll mix in elbows too, but eats a lot of shots. He does have a great chin, but eventually that's going to come back to bite him. When he's in the pocket, he leaves his body open, and at this moment he's super durable and he usually can break guys. But to me, he's a little bit of a knockout waiting to happen. I think eventually someone's going to knock him out, but as long as his chin holds up and you can't take him down, he's going to be throwing crazy volume, pressing forward, and he's finished 4 of his 8 fights in the second or third round. So it just shows that wears guys down and then he could take you out. And his wrestling looked a little questionable in his loss in MMA. He got taken down, he got held down for portions of the fight. And with his reckless style, he can't kind of expose the hips when he comes forward. So I would say that could be an issue for him, takedown defense. But he's okay getting back up when he's taken down and has really good cardio. So he's going to be a tough guy. You're going to have to bring your lunch pail to beat him. But Joshua Culiba, slick and speedy striker. He's a little bit flat-footed, but uses a wide stance so he can move in and out quickly. He could switch stance. He's pretty elusive. He's hard to hit. Likes to point fight. He'll pull guys into bigger punches and counter with straight shots. Good 1-2s, 1-1-2s. Good cross counters. He's just overall like a pretty solid in the pocket too. He's good everywhere. Good kicks. He has good calf kicks. He checks kicks. In the clinch, he'll throw decent dirty boxing attacks. He could throw kicks from the outside to the body and the head, but isn't a big puncher. He can hurt you if he lands like a knee or something, but I think he's going to have to really sit down on some shots and throw heat to get Danny Silva to respect him. And he's a little bit low volume. I'm not sure if he has that dog in him, so this fight is going to show 100%, if Danny Silva is bringing a war, if Culiba is going to shy away or come with it, and we're going to see that. But Culiba is going to be able to land a lot of nice counters probably, and he just needs to try to stay sharp, stick and move, and not get into an all-out brawl here. And he can time takedowns. I think it would be smart to look for level changes, especially early, maybe hit a takedown in the first round, get Silva a little bit less confident to pressure wildly like that, and that could go a long way in winning the fight. He only has 1 submission win, but we saw he was able to snatch the neck up quickly against Bogdasarian, so I feel like his submission threat is there. And defensive wrestling could be better. Laurent Murphy, was able to get his back, control him for a lot of the time, but I don't think Silva's going to have that threat here. It's kind of a tough fight, but I'm going to pick Culiba because of the UFC experience. I think he has the better technical skills, and I'll say he wins via decision. And with this next fight, we got Jael Foo coming back, taking on OD Day Osborne. And both these guys kind of mid-tier flyweights, and Osborne has a lot more UFC experience. He's also 2 years older. He's 4-4 in the UFC, and his losses have all came against credible guys, but doesn't really have great wins. He did beat Charles Johnson, which is a good win. Has an okay win over CJ Vergara, but hasn't had too many great performances to write home about against great fighters. Jael Foo, he's 1-1. He had a really good debut, actually, with Muhammad Mokaev, where performed really well, got close to submitting him. But his second fight, I feel like even though he won, didn't look the best. I mean, he almost got finished on multiple occasions, and I think his stock kind of dropped from the first fight to that fight. He did end up recovering and getting that submission win, so he's 1-1 in the UFC now. But I think he needs to win this fight and probably get a finish to kind of cement his position in the organization and show that he can be a potential top 15 guy. But you look at both these guys stylistically. Osborne, great athlete, extremely fast and powerful for 125, fast twitch. He likes to work feints, jabs, low kicks, and tries to get fighters to come to him, and then you'll counter with 3-2s, 2-3s. Really good pull counter ability, good kicks, good knees. There's a lot of low kicks, and he has fast body kicks and head kicks. In this fight, I think he's going to be throwing a lot of shots up the middle. Out with those step-in knees, flying knees, uppercuts. He's southpaw, but he could switch stance. He operates well from both stances, but his left hand and left leg are where you see most of his knockouts come from. And I would say he's definitely going to have a good chance at getting an early knockout in this fight. He's going to be way faster than Filo. And if Filo can't find Osborne and is getting countered, we saw based off his last fight, his durability is a little suspect. So if I'm OD as well, I'm putting more emphasis on attacking the legs, attacking the body, because I think Filo isn't the toughest guy, it didn't seem like. But just needs to stay disciplined, not brawl, and the striking should be his all day. But Osborne also has a questionable chin, so you can never 100% trust him on the feet. But his wrestling has definitely gotten way better. People don't give Osborne credit for his improvements in the wrestling defense, but takedown defense and get-ups looked really solid in his fight with Charles Johnson. Even got some takedowns himself in that fight. And physically, I think he's one of the bigger and stronger flyweights. He should be stronger than Filo. His last fight, he fought one of the best wrestlers in the division and just wasn't up to snuff with the wrestling. But Ambayev is levels above Jafel Filo's wrestling, in my opinion. And Osborne needs to keep this fight standing, though. If he ends up on bottom, he isn't great. Tend to expose his back. His guard is okay. He's gotten some triangle armbar wins, but I don't think that's going to happen here. And he does get tired when he's forced to grapple, so needs to keep it more in his realm. And in this fight, he can't wrestle when he's tired. In other fights, he's had that tendency. If he tries to wrestle later in the fight when he's tired, he probably will get submitted. But I think Osborne here, he just has to pressure, be aggressive, keep Filo on the back foot, be ready to counter, and throw those leg kicks, attack the body a little bit more than usual. And Filo usually shoots when he backs fighters up. So if Osborne controls the center, I think he should have a good chance of keeping this fight on the feet. For Jafel Filo, dangerous grappler, good punching power. I'm not really a fan of his striking. Flat-footed Muay Thai guy. He tries to pressure forward and then occasionally explode in with big punches. Good lead hook, decent rear cross, good speed. He definitely has punching power, like I said, we saw in his last fight, but I could see Filo having a lot of issues trying to close the gap and land or grab Osborne without getting cracked here. And if Osborne goes first, pressures, has a good showing, it could be a long night for Filo. Filo's going to have to take some shots to get the win here and has to know that it could be a rough early beginning to the fight. But dangerous high-level grappler. He is dangerous from the top position, from bottom, even from standing. He can jump on your back, but Filo shoots from too far out. He doesn't really set his takedowns up. Normally only tends to shoot when he backs fighters up near the cage. When he actually gets in on the double, he can get you down. He seems like he's pretty strong, and he's good at getting the back from standing, like I said. Dangerous rear naked chokes. Last fight, quickly took his opponent out with an arm triangle. Has 9 submissions. Off his back, he'll attack leg locks. We saw he really messed up Makhaev's leg in their fight, but can be desperate to keep fights on the ground and has tried to pull guard and lay on his back and guys to follow him down, and has some bad looks sometimes for the judges. I also don't really trust his cardio. He has been submitted twice in round 3. So it's a difficult fight to predict. Skill-wise, I think OD should win. He's more athletic. If this fight stays standing and OD is sharp, I think he's going to dominate and find the knockout. Filo has really good heart, and he will go on a shield, though, whereas Osborne isn't a great nail. And Osborne, to me, can have a little bit poor fight IQ and suspect durability. So it's just difficult to trust him. But cardio-wise, I think both guys are going to slow down. So I don't think it's going to be as big an issue for OD as other people are saying. If it goes longer, unless he gets put on his back because Philo will be beat up, I just think he's not going to have that same pace that people are predicting. But I'm going to predict Osborne gets a first-round knockout here. I see this fight playing out, Philo throwing some wild punches and Osborne just landing a big shot early and getting the finish. I just don't really trust Philo, but it's one of these fights where if either guy gets into their realm and has the fight that they want, they're probably going to get the finish. But I'm going to go with OD Osborne. And this next fight, there's a lot of people that have some strong opinions on this fight, and I'm a little bit surprised, but Josiane Nunes taking on Chelsea Chandler. Nunes 3-0 in the UFC, and finally coming down to 135 and maybe trying to make a run. I mean, she's had these weird fights at 145, has been fighting really low-level competition, and I don't really know what Nunes' future is, but like I said, now at 135, she actually has a real chance to move up in the rankings and do something with her career. And Chelsea Chandler, she's also someone that's fought all her fights at 145 and now it's coming down to 135. Her last fight, she fought in the UFC and fought Norma Dumont and didn't go good for her. But she kind of got turned into a meme, really dominated over 3 rounds. But 33 years old, I think she's in a weird position because we don't really have an idea of her actual level. I mean, if she could beat Nunes, we'll have a little bit of a better picture. But if not, I could see her getting cut. So the pressure's on for both girls here. But I don't really have a good read on this fight at all. I think Chelsea Chandler is more skilled, has more tools, but she's not very trustworthy and she's raw. Josiane Nunes isn't great, but she brings intensity and power, which gets you a long way in female MMA. And Chandler is going to be way bigger. And that'll matter if this fight's clinch heavy or if Chandler gets on top. But as far as in the striking, I don't see her size being an advantage because she doesn't control distance. Both these girls are going to meet in the middle. And I think Nunes is going to be throwing harder and throwing more volume. But Chandler never been finished with strikes. I mean, we saw her reaction to getting hit clean by Norma. If Nunes connects, I think maybe she could get her out of there. Chandler's going to have to clinch here, try to use her size, cage push, get it to the ground. Isn't a very good wrestler to me, but if she can hit a trip or a body lock, get on top of Nunes, who has bad takedown defense, she could finish. She's aggressive on top. Her takedown defense is really bad. I don't really see that being a factor here. As a pure pick, I'm going to say Nunes wins via second round KO TKO, but just don't have a lot of confidence in my prediction on this fight, and I think it's a low-level fight that's kind of hard to predict either side here. And for this next fight, we got 2 prospects coming in off year-plus layoffs. We got Nathan Levy and Mike Davis. Mike Davis, he hasn't fought since October of 2022. Had some injuries. I think he had some other things that were going on for why he didn't fight. And in general, Davis just struggles to stay active. He debuted with the UFC in 2019, and since then he's only fought 4 times in 5 years. He had 0 fights in 2020. He had 0 fights in 2023. But he is on a 3-fight win streak, and he is a guy that people still see as a prospect because whenever he gets in there, he usually has good performances. But needs to stay active and put together wins if he wants to move the rankings. And it seems to me, as just from listening to Mike Davis's interviews and things like that, fighting isn't a super priority to him. I've heard him say in interviews, fighting 1 time gives him 2 years of freedom. He could pay all his bills, travel, do what he wants, or something like that. And to me, that's kind of a weird statement. I mean, doesn't seem like the best mindset to me, but I guess it's working for him. And Nathan Levy, he's coming off layoff. He had some injuries, canceled fights, frustrating year last year. He was 2-0 in 2022, so he also had some momentum, but similarly to Mike Davis, it's kind of almost a restart for both guys here. He had the year away, now he's come back into a tough fight, and I think the winner of this fight is going to get a big matchup next, maybe even a top 15 guy, so it's a really good matchup. I feel like people are counting out Natan Levy in this fight, but I think he is live to win. I mean, I feel like you have to favor Davis, and I agree with the line, and I am going to be picking Davis, but you look at how both these guys match up. Mike Davis, really good boxing. He's a huge guy for 155 too. The guy cuts a ton of weight, and we see that in terms of his gas tank. He does get tired, but when he's fresh, he has great head movement. He does a good job of throwing in combination. You attack the body, and he uses uppercuts and body punches kind of to disguise each other, and it's a good way to land these combos and get off. And really good hand speed, good boxing. I think that in terms of if they're in the pocket, Levy doesn't have much of a chance. He throws that check hook, and maybe if Mike Davis gets tired and Levy can connect on that clean, something could happen, but he doesn't necessarily have that big pop in his hand. So if Mike Davis gets the fight where he wants, I think it's going to be in the pocket or backed up Levy against the cage. And where Levy wants it is at kicking range or in the clinch or on the ground. And I feel like that's going to be the battle here. Mike Davis is going to be trying to pressure, try to use his boxing, get Natan Levy uncomfortable, and then maybe connect with some big shots, hurt him. And Mike Davis has good wrestling too, so that's going to be an interesting battle here. Who has the wrestling advantage? If Davis gets stuffed some shots from Natan early and, like I said, put the pressure on and make it more of a boxing range fight, he is probably going to get a lot of damage off and have a lot of success. And if Davis could put Levy on his back, I think he's going to have a good night and probably win pretty easily. But if Natan Levy can actually keep it more at kicking range, land those calf kicks, uses dynamic striking that he has from the outside, he could get to Davis a little bit. And I think Levy has to throw high volume, throw in combination as well. And Mike Davis gets tired, so he needs to not let Mike Davis fight in bursts. You know, if he gets taken down, he has to try to get back up right away. Has to try to shoot in on Mike Davis, initiate wrestling, and make it a really, really high-paced battle here. And if he could do that, I think he could get Davis tired and potentially steal the decision or maybe get a late finish. But ultimately, as a pure prediction, I'm going to say Mike Davis wins this one via decision. I just think he's a little bit better than Levy in terms of composure on the feet, and I think he's going to probably be able to keep it standing. I don't know if he's going to get tired enough to where Levy can win the second round or finish him late, so I think he'll probably win a decision. Maybe Levy has success in round 3, but I'll say Mike Davis wins 29-28. And up next here, we got two OG veterans here with Gerald Mearshart at GM3 taking on Bryan Barberena. And GM3 is a big favorite. Usually you don't see GM3 as a favorite, so to me, this is almost an unbettable fight because Bryan Barberena, as long as he doesn't want to cut weight to 170 and really get serious, it's hard for me to trust him and back him with any sort of money or even pick him to win a fight. I mean, I think that stylistically, it's a winnable fight for Barberena, but he's going to be at a big size disadvantage, and obviously if GM3 could get it to the ground at all and create any grappling exchanges, Barberena is going to be in big danger of being submitted. But when you look at this fight on the feet, it's southpaw versus southpaw. GM3, kind of a okay striker, but lacks that athleticism, and his chin isn't there. I feel like Barberena is the more durable guy. He's the more fluid boxer. If he can get on the inside, he could throw elbows too and mix it up. And Barberena doesn't have a lot of power, but he throws a lot of volume and kind of overwhelm people and take shots to give shots, eat their best punches, and he has a great chin. But takedown defense has always been a big issue for Barberena. GM3 isn't really a guy, though, that has great wrestling. I don't know if he's going to be able to take him down like Murdoch did, especially if Barberena really showed up in shape and was prepared for a wrestling attack. Like in his fight with RDA, he did eventually get submitted, but I feel like he came in better shape for that fight. It was at 170, that southpaw versus southpaw look, and he was able to defend the single legs. He just couldn't defend the takedowns against the cage. But GM3, if he can get him in the clinch against the fence, he's probably going to be big on him and maybe be able to drag him down, get him tired at minimum. And I think GM3 maybe at range could kind of chip away a little bit. But I think it's a dog or pass. It's just like I said at the beginning of the breakdown, as long as Barberina's at 185, I just can't trust him. I don't think he should be at this weight class. I feel like he's not giving his 100% effort more than likely. Could be wrong. I mean, maybe he's going to put on size and come into this weight class and look good, but I just don't think that's the reason why he moved up. I think it was more like didn't want to cut weight anymore, kind of has a family now. He has that farm and he's doing his thing, and I think that he wants to just get a few more fights in at 185. I think he opened his own gym and is running that now as well. So he just has a lot of things going on. I don't know if he's taking MMA serious anymore. And I'm going to go with GM3. I'll say GM3 wins via third round submission here. And up next, we got a fight where I'm pretty confident in Macy Chiasson getting the win here once again. Don't really see a lot of differences from the first fight. If anything, I think that Chiasson had a little bit of her peak and then fell off a little bit. I actually like Penny Chiasson's style. I think she has good boxing. But her takedown defense looked atrocious in her last fight, and she just really didn't have the fire to me. She's taking a layoff. Now she's coming back, so maybe she'll look different, but she's coming in against a girl that she's already fought in Macy Chiasson that has been fighting higher level competition. Her last fight, people are giving her a lot of crap for the way it finished, but she was arguably en route to beating Irene Aldana in that fight before that happened. And I think Irene Aldana, it's a similar fight here with Penny Chiasson, a girl that has good boxing, that wants to keep the distance and try to box with you, but I feel like she actually is not as dangerous as Irene on the feet, and I think maybe she's a little bit better with the wrestling defense, but I still think Macy can take her down, and there's not going to be as big of a threat off the back from Chiasson. She doesn't really pose much of a submission threat. I think Chiasson in her last fight, she showed she can hurt Chiasson on the feet, and she showed she could submit her on the ground. So I think that Chiasson can get to the back here and get that finish with the rear naked, or at minimum win this one via pretty dominant decision. I just don't see a lot of path to victory for Chiasson. I mean, maybe if Chiasson has a really bad weight cut coming down to 135 for the first time in a while and just doesn't perform, Chiasson could steal kind of a crappy fight. But if that doesn't happen, I think Macy's going to be able to get the win, and she's probably going to win inside the distance. So I think the fight doesn't go to decision for this fight. The unders are pretty good bets here. And up next, we got Christian Rodriguez taking on Isaac Dogarian. This seems like the fight of the week for most people, where a lot of people are on the Christian side, a lot of people are on the Isaac side, and both these guys have some hype behind them. Christian Rodriguez, he went in there his last fight, beat Cameron Simone. Obviously, before that, he beat Raul Rosas, so made a name for himself at 135. But the issue with him at 135 was making the weight, man. He missed weight consistently, and now he's not going to be that weight bully anymore because he had to move up to 145, taking on a pretty big 145er in Isaac Dogarian. They're the same size height-wise and kind of build-wise, reach and length, but I think Isaac has a lot more muscle. He's a lot bigger guy, a lot more filled out, and C-Rod's going to have to deal with a way stronger wrestler and grappler, probably a heavier top pressure guy when they fight here. And it's a hard fight to really break down just because Isaac Dogarian, we haven't seen much of anything from him except for him taking guys down early and either dominating them and locking in that choke quick or using nasty ground and pound and finishing the fight early. So it's like, haven't seen him face much adversity, haven't seen him go long. But one thing I think I'm pretty confident in, and maybe I could be wrong, but I don't see Isaac Dogarian being a flake, someone that's going to face adversity and quit out there, someone that's going to get tired. I mean, I've seen this guy on IG, and he's like running in the mountain to like 10,000 feet elevation, and seems like he's super dedicated. He loves the sport. I don't know if they're married or it's his girlfriend, but girlfriend, she's an MMA fighter as well, and I think he's a wild guy. I think Dogarian is someone that has a lot of potential, and I like Christian Rodriguez. I think C-Rod has done really good with certain grapplers, like where he can get taken down, he can create scrambles, good front chokes. Striking, you have to kind of probably say C-Rod's is better, but it's hard to definitively say that just because you haven't seen Dogarian on the feet. But I think there was a reason why he was at 135. I think he likes being the bigger guy, and in this fight, that's not going to be the case. I think that Dogarian is probably take him down and land a lot of ground and pound and finish him in the first round. I mean, just like he usually has. I think Dogarian is a high-level prospect here, and even if he has to extend the fight and go longer, I think he'll do it. Christian Rodriguez, in his fight with Rosas, he was getting taken down, but Rosas had such a inclination or a want to get to the back, and he lost position a lot due to that, got himself tired. I think Dogarian is going to flow with Rodriguez on top when he tries to get into a better position. He's just going to move with him, and he knows how to wrestle. He knows how to stay in good position, how to push the pace, and ultimately I don't think he's going to have to do any of that because I think he's going to get the first round knockout, but give me Isaac Dogarian, first round KO. And curious what you guys' thoughts on this one because I know a lot of people are on Christian. Tell me why you like Christian if you're on Christian Rodriguez here. But my prediction is going to be Isaac Dogarian. And up next, we got Ovince St. Preux taking on Kennedy Nzechukwu. And this fight, I think the line is off on this fight, man. I mean, see a lot of people with extreme confidence on Kennedy, and I get it. I mean, OSP, his last two fights have been really bad, right? Like, can't deny that. But if he comes back looking decent at all, that line's going to look really off, man. I just personally don't understand it. I mean, if OSP gets caught with one punch like he did with Felipe Lins early, gets clipped and can't recover and gets finished, okay, I mean, then Kennedy's going to cover his line. But when I'm looking at this fight, I mean, OSP, he southpaw. Kennedy's a southpaw. He has a long reach. Kennedy is a long reach. I mean, these guys are similar. I mean, you look at how they fight. Kennedy is a different type of fighter on the feet. He likes to pressure forward, and he almost has like a Homer Simpson style where he lets guys hit him and hurt him early, and then he comes back and gets the finish when they get tired. But with this fight, man, I mean, I think his striking is, he's going to be in danger at range here. I mean, we watched even OSP, I know it was in 2020, so that's what I'm saying. It's like it's hard to kind of really know. But when he fought Jamal Hill in 2020, the last southpaw that he fought, OSP did well in that fight, man. He was landing a lot of check hooks. He rocked, or not rocked, but he definitely like clipped Hill where Hill was acknowledging it. Like, okay, you got me with a good one there. And if you touch Kennedy on the chin, I mean, this guy's a weird guy. I mean, sometimes he can go in there and be the Terminator and take 100 strikes and stay in there. And sometimes he can get hit with one shot and get knocked the fuck out. So if you're betting him at minus 500, I just think it's kind of it's a hard case for me to make. Especially when you look at the guys that Kennedy's beaten. I mean, he's beaten more grappling-based fighters or wrestlers, really, that get tired and then get submitted, whereas OSP is not a guy that gets taken down very often. The last time he's got taken down more than one time in a fight was against Corey Anderson in 2017. So I think it could be a clinch fight. It could be, a low-volume striking fight. But I don't really see Kennedy taking him down with those body locks, things like that, unless OSP just really gasses out. And the clinch, I mean, it should be competitive there. It's not like OSP is a slouch there. He's not easy to control. So if he could stay off the cage and make it more of a striking fight on the outside, then hey, I think he's going to have a 50-50 shot to get the knockout early and then maybe win like a crappy decision, split decision in a boring fight. But I don't see Kennedy submitting OSP in this one unless he can land a knee or something and then catch him in a submission. I feel like Kennedy Nzechukwu by decision is a good bet here because OSP, you know what type of fighter he is. He's not going to really go for it. If you give him a slow-paced fight and maybe clinch him a little bit, throw minimal strikes, you could beat him by decision if you're Kennedy and you fight smart. And I think Kennedy should do that here. If Kennedy goes in there and tries to push the pace on OSP and clinch him up and be reckless closing the distance and taking him down, things like that, I could see him getting clipped and getting caught and taken out. So Kennedy has to be smart. He can't disrespect and be acting like OSP's a complete bum like I'm hearing some people act like. So I just think that it's a tricky fight. It's a fight where OSP, if he shows up and I think he's looks on point on the scales or early in the first round, I'm thinking he's looking good, I might put a bet on OSP just because I think stylistically I don't see a lot of huge advantages for Njeku outside of youth. I mean, both these guys don't have the greatest durability. I think OSP has the better striking at distance. I think he's going to land more. I think his counter ability is dangerous. He has power. And Kennedy, I don't know if he could eat one of those clean shots from OSP, so we're going to see. And cardio is definitely an advantage for Njeku, but is he going to be able to really push the pace like crazy unless he can dominate in the clinch? I don't really know. So just because OSP, I kind of feel like I'm being scared not picking OSP here, but I'm going to say Njeku wins via decision, and that's like plus 700 odds. So I think that's a good bet, man. Kenny Njeku to win via decision. And OSP via knockout. I think he could win via knockout or win inside the distance. So I would maybe target those two props on this fight and go with it like that. But I'll say Kennedy Njeku wins via decision here. And up next year we got a prospect versus prospect fight. And I think it's a really good fight. Two of the better fighters outside of that top kind of 25 range in the welterweight division with Bryan Battle and Ange Losa. Both these guys are coming in here off good performances, and they're looking to kind of differentiate themselves and get into that top 15 conversation. So Bryan Battle, I think he's a little bit of a bigger name because he won the Ultimate Fighter. He's had some slick knockouts, but Ange Losa is no one to sleep on. I mean, he had to have a really rough fight in the Contender Series against someone that's now in the top 5, Jack Della Maddalena, and actually took a round off him at a really close competitive fight with him, and then came into the UFC on short notice, took a loss there, but he's won 2 fights in a row since. His last fight, I thought he looked pretty impressive against Reese McKee, and you look at how both these guys match up. On the feet, Bryan Battle is going to be the more powerful guy, but he's not as technical, and he doesn't really have great hands. Like, his boxing isn't good, his hands are slow, but he throws good kicks. His front kicks up the middle are nasty, really good head kicks, and those are going to potentially be available against a shorter guy here in Losa that does sometimes kind of move his head side to side. And we saw AJ Fletcher land a head kick on him, but I think in this fight, Losa obviously going to know the king game of Bryan Battle is the most dangerous aspect, and I see him trying to box, get inside, and get the takedowns. I think that's a perfect game plan for Losa in this fight. If he could take down Bryan Battle, Battle will throw up some stuff off his back, but Losa's been training with these really high-level grapplers for a long time, guys like Gilbert Burns, and I don't see Bryan Battle being able to submit him from bottom or really threaten him too much. I think if he takes down Bryan Battle, he can hold him down, and I do rate Losa's wrestling pretty highly. I think he has good wrestling. His striking is technical, like I said. I think he has the speed and boxing advantage. But sometimes he gets hurt, and sometimes these guys that like to be like super crazy technical with their striking. Like, if you get an unorthodox guy that pushes the pace, like Bryan Battle, that has some power, they can kind of like land and hurt these guys. So I'm a little worried about that with Losa, just Battle finishing him potentially. But Losa makes all his fights wars. He has great durability at this point. Recoverability is crazy. And his cardio is good. I mean, he pushes the pace. I feel like the wrestling is going to be the differentiator here, though. I think Losa is going to be able to use his wrestling to get a couple takedowns after they're really back and forth and close on the feet and secure a decision through that. So give me the underdog here, Ange Losa. I'm going to say he gets probably the biggest win of his career via decision. And finally, we got the main event, Tai Tuivasa taking on Marcin Tybura. And to be honest, I don't really got a lot to say about this fight. I don't like this fight too much. I mean, Tai Tuivasa, to me, should win this one, but it's just hard to trust a guy like Tai. You know, like, he's a great character. I'm not hating on him, but just his lifestyle outside the cage, decision-making inside the cage, you know, it's hard to trust someone like that who's just really unpredictable, that's not going to give themselves the most optimal training camp, the best way to win. It's like everything is going against him. Himself personally, he's like fighting himself before he fights his opponent, but the guy does get himself in good enough shape to fight, goes out there, and his striking is slick. I mean, the guy has good leg kicks. I think those could be a factor in this fight. and just needs to avoid getting held up against the fence, getting tired, getting taken down by Tybura, and should end up winning on the feet. Tybura just doesn't have a good chin. His striking, to me, isn't great. He doesn't have the best composure when he gets hurt. So I am going to pick Ty in this one. But like you're seeing, I don't really have a long breakdown, and I don't really have a ton of interest in this fight. I see it's like an even money line. I totally agree with that. I wouldn't necessarily go out and bet this fight. I think it could go either way. If Tuivasa comes in and gets tired, then Tybura could just control him. I mean, I don't know what the odds are on Tybura via decision. I mean, maybe that could be a way to go. But I'm going to pick Tuivasa to win via knockout in the first or the second round in this fight, in the main event. So that's going to be a prediction for that fight. And there you have it, guys. It's my full card breakdown predictions for UFC Fight Night Vegas 88. Tai Tuivasa versus Marcin Tybura. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you learned something from this video. And outside of that, for my most confident pick on this card, I will say it's Thiago Moises. And for the parlay of the week, I'll go with Thiago Moises and Macy Chiasson. So thanks for watching, guys. If you want access to the rest of my bets, if you want access to my Cage Warriors predictions, to more UFC and betting content, MMA content in general, Patreon.com/Prediction Guru. Go there, check it out. Give some of the best breakdowns, some of the best bets in the business over there. And besides that, I'm going to be back breaking down another fight card soon, talking about some more fights, giving you guys some bets, whatever I feel like doing, dropping on this channel. But stay tuned, and I'll talk to you guys later.